Chesterfield are back in the EFL and they're back with a bang. They're a club back on the up now. They'd had a period of real decline on and off the pitch through financial mismanagement of Dave Allen and of Ashley Carson, but now under Goodwin's ownership of the Chesterfield Supporters Trust, Community Trust. They're now back with real fire and real optimism and are actually one of the favourites for automatic promotion from League Two this season. So really looking forward to getting into it. This EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive with SpireitesWrite. Yes, welcome along to this EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive, one of many we're doing across the EFL between mid-June and mid-July. There's already a few being uploaded to YouTube and Spotify, so go and check those out once you're done with this one. I'm delighted to be joined for now by Matt Atkins and Tom from SpireitesWrite. Thank you so much for joining me this evening, Jack. It's a real pleasure to have you on. Matt, I'm going to come to you first. You must feel like there's a real feel-good factor around Chesterfield at the moment.
Oh, it's absolutely unreal. I mean, I think in the intro you've spoken a little bit about the real lows that Chesterfield faced as a club over the past kind of 6, 7, 8 year periods. We were very close to dropping into regional football and even going out of business at one point. Me and Tom remember a horrid day up at Chorley where I think it was only a Tom Denton goal that secured us the 3 points that day, just before everything stopped because of COVID, and obviously points per game was used to determine the final finishes that season. If we hadn't got that win up at Chorley, we'd have been playing in the National League North and maybe even going bust as a club. So it really was that close at one point. Since then, we've had a bit of a renaissance around the whole club and the whole town, which has just been amazing. Obviously, culminating in Paul Cook coming back and just taking the National League by storm last season. Obviously, heartbreak at Wembley in the playoff final, but we bounced back in amazing fashion and really kind of set the league alight last year with Will Grigg banging the goals going in left, right, and centre from all over the pitch as well. It really was a fantastic season. And like you say, we're riding on the crest of a wave now. We've got the belief back in the town. We're back where we feel we belong in the EFL, and it's great to be back in League Two.
Absolutely. Tom, do you feel that there's a sense of lessons having been learnt from the club that are now under the Chesterfield Football Club Community Trust's ownership?
Yeah, I hope so. I think I just think back to those years when we dropped out of the Football League. Like you said earlier on, it was a long period of stagnation, and it started off the pitch. At the end of the day, the club was being run very poorly, wastefully as well, losing hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, millions of pounds a year. And then obviously, once you drop out of the league, it's very hard to get back, as you know, only one automatic spot. So I would hope that, yeah, in that regard, lessons have been learned that we can never let it happen again, if possible, that we never drop back into non-league. But also, I think in general now, the club's ran properly by people who actually care about it. And as a football fan, that's all you can ever ask for, really, isn't it?
Certainly is. I think I'm getting a bit of a hit of noise back from one of your cameras, so I don't know if it's possible to have a fiddle. But in the meantime, I'm going to come to you, Matt, because in terms of the National League title-winning season after that player final defeat to them lot up the road, as you'll call them, but I just wonder whether you feel like you benefited from maybe the fact that the National League was more open last season because Notts County and Wrexham were out of the league and maybe it was a little bit more of a favourable division, perhaps.
I've heard this quite a lot of supporters online saying that it was an easy league last year, and I don't really agree with it, to be honest. I think obviously Notts County and Wrexham were both exceptional teams the season before the one that's just gone. And they both rightfully deserved to go up that year. But the vast majority of the teams in the league was just as strong, if not stronger, as from when Notts County and Wrexham were in there. Obviously, we were the third place team the year that Wrexham and Notts both went up. So I guess you could say the expectation was all on us to carry on and to win the league. Not only from within the town itself, but from around the whole league. Everyone's saying that we were the favourites to go up. So I would say we did a very good job of living up to expectation really. And I don't agree that it was an easy league last year at all, because I think to say it's ever easy to get out of the National League is a bit naive, to be honest.
Yeah, it's never easy, of course, but I think I would maybe argue as a little bit more financially a level playing field, that you're able to benefit from bringing in the likes of Tom Naylor and Will Grigg. But I wanted to come to you, Tom, about Paul Cook, because and I guess the impact that he's had on Chesterfield since returning.
I mean, where do you even start with Paul Cook? I think he doesn't need any introductions, really. He's one of the best managers in lower league football. It's that simple. It's really nice as a fan knowing that you've got him there, because you know that off the pitch and on the training pitch and that kind of thing, things are being done properly. You don't have to worry about that side of things at all. And I find with a lot of managers, you don't know. Like, a lot of the time, you might not have a clear style of play. You might not know whether or not they're that good at coaching players. But obviously, we've had Paul Cook here twice now, and both times it's been absolutely spot on. He's a top manager. He gets the best out of players that are already here. His recruitment's top notch, and he's got connections as well. I mean, as you've alluded to, the likes of Tom Naylor, Will Grigg, even Armando Dobra and players like that dropping into non-league. The only reason they came here is because Paul Cook's here at the end of the day. So to have a well-connected manager who's also a fantastic coach and just a great bloke as well. We've really hit the lottery there, to be honest.
Matt, I mean, I think the thing that's always struck me about Paul Cook is that he's a very passionate manager and somebody who will get people running through brick walls for you because of how he motivates people. But there's also been a feeling that previously in his career he's relied on the assistance of Liam Richardson, and sometimes the school of thought has been that Richardson's played a different role, maybe a more of a tactical, technical sort of role, accompanying Paul Cook. So I'm just wondering, how do you think he's made it work in terms of the coaching team? Do you think, first of all, do you think that theory is a little bit misplaced, and actually Paul Cook's a really good technical, tactical coach in his own right? Or do you think he's had other really good coaches at Chesterfield alongside him?
I think he and Liam Richardson were a great team together at all the clubs that they went to. And it was clear that those two really did work well together. But I don't necessarily think that means Cook relies on him. I mean, I think one thing that was really good was that when Paul Cook first came back to the club, they didn't get rid of Danny Webb, who was the assistant manager to, obviously, James Rowe, who was the previous manager. And what that did was it allowed Webb to impart all of his knowledge about the National League as someone who's managed at that level or been an assistant manager at that level for many years onto Cook, because at the end of the day, it was a division that Paul Cook hasn't managed in before, wasn't familiar with. So I think that really helped with the transition and with helping Cook get to grips with the league. But then what he's also done is he's managed to bring along some of his own coaching staff with him, who've just got a wealth of experience across the game. Obviously, Gary Roberts, he's played at fantastic levels of football. He did fantastically as a player for Chesterfield during his time here as well. But it's not just him. Obviously, you've got Kieran Dyer coming in as well with England international experience. So what he's done is he's assembled a fantastic team of coaching staff with experience of the very top level of football, and that's just bled through onto the pitch to the playing squad.
Yeah, that certainly seems the case. Tom, I'm curious to ask you what you think the starting formation is going to be next season, because I believe it kind of flipped between 4-2-3-1 last year and 4-3-3. But I guess with the embarrassment of riches that you've got in those attacking areas, would you be leaning towards 4-2-3-1?
I think Paul Cook's preferred system is 4-2-3-1, to be honest with you. And you are right, he's experimented with a 4-3-3 at times. It's had mixed success, I would say. At times it's worked all right. In other games, not so much. But I think Paul Cook's sort of tactical DNA, if you know what I mean, is a 4-2-3-1. And obviously, we have quite a lot of flexibility in terms of who can play what position within that sort of attacking midfield three. I'd say that's our strongest area of the pitch. And to be honest, we're probably one of the strongest teams in League Two, I would say, in that position, just from the options we've got. So at the end of the day, Paul Cook's a fluid manager. He has a fluid style of play, and he's got, like you say, riches to choose from in those positions. So yeah, I would say 4-2-3-1 is definitely the likely formation next year.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, especially Matt with the signing of Paddy Madden, which is quite a statement addition. This is someone who's been a bit of a League Two specialist previously in his career and won promotion from the level last season with Stockport County.
I mean, we're just glad we've got him now, so he can't score against us, to be honest, because every time he plays against us, he seems to bag. Yeah, what a fantastic signing. Someone with direct experience of winning League Two last season, scored, 17 goals in the league as well. And he's versatile in terms of he can either play in the number 9 or he can drop slightly deeper and play in the hole in that 10 position as well. So he'll suit our style of play down to the ground in a 4-2-3-1. And it's not a bad choice between Will Grigg or Paddy Madden up front, is it?
Not bad. I mean, the question for me would be working them together. How effective will they be from a pressing point of view? I mean, I don't know what Will Grigg was like from that aspect last season, Tom.
I think Will Grigg, he might not be your sort of archetypal, really fast striker, but he makes up for that with his experience and disposition, if I'm honest. It's probably the best part of his game. It's the reason why he scored so many goals across his career, because he just always knows where to be. And I think that is equally the case out of possession as in possession. So in terms of last season, he'd pick his moments, but when he picked his moments, he would press fully with intensity, and they couldn't deal with him, to be honest. So whether or not we'll have as much success with that next year in League Two, obviously slightly probably faster phases of play, slightly more competent defenders on the ball, that sort of thing. I don't know. Personally, I think Will Grigg's got that now because he's done it in League One. There's no reason why he can't do it in League Two as well.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm really excited to see whether Will Grigg can be one of the top goal scorers in League Two next season with the sort of wealth of creativity around him. One thing I was really surprised at, Matt, is that Ollie Banks has been playing on the right wing for Chesterfield, because I know he was in your first stint. Obviously, a little bit older now. I would personally have seen him in a sort of deeper midfield role, pinging passes to the flanks. But from what Spy Stats was saying, from sort of speaking to him, was maybe that it was a little bit off balance initially, and you brought in Darren Oldacre and I think Mike Jones and actually changed the balance a little bit. So yeah, has that been a bit of a surprise to you seeing Ollie Banks get moved to the right wing?
Sort of, yeah. I get where you're coming from in terms of he doesn't really strike you as being a traditional winger, does he? From that sort of pace point of view and taking fullbacks on. I guess the thing is though, our front three behind the striker are kind of fluid, so he won't stick to the right wing. He might drift inwards, and there's a lot of interchanging between the three that do sit in behind Will Grigg typically. And what we found is that he's really good at closing down, similar to Grigg in terms of having the nous of knowing where to be to really put the pressure on. There's not too many players in the bottom sort of 2 divisions of English football who've got a long shot like Ollie Banks. He scored some fantastic goals from outside the box last season for us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But I suppose it's a testament to him, Tom, that he's been able to get into one of those 3 attacking midfield positions. Because I mean, I've had to write down a list of paper with the options on. I mean, you've got Liam Mandeville there. You've got James Berry, who's had a really big season. It's certainly coming off the bench. You got Ryan Colclough. You got Armando Dobre. You got Michael Jacobs. All of these players who can play in those attacking midfield roles. And then, of course, you're bringing Paddy Madden into that for this season. You've got a real... it's so exciting, the sort of range of options that you've got there, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. I think that's the right word. It's incredibly exciting whenever you see any of those players get on the ball, because they have a variety of different attributes as well. Some of them are good direct runners. Some of them have got a good pass. Some of them can turn on a sixpence. So we've got lots of options in terms of how we can attack the opposition as well, which is brilliant. But yeah, in terms of Ollie Banks, I mean, he's a fantastic passer in the football, isn't he? I think quite a lot of our players have said that he's the best passer they've ever worked with. I think that's why he's worked his way to the team, because, like Matt said, he's got a great long shot on him, but he can also just pick out a pass that no one else would even see. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, he'll definitely be a real threat next season, and alongside all those other players you just listed.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk to me about James Berry, Matt, because this is somebody who's one of these sorts of exciting wild cards that I'm really curious to see, because as much as I can see why you've gone for your Chey Dunkleys and for your Lewis Gordons and for your Paddy Maddens and players with really good Football League experience, I'm also quite excited about these sort of wild card players that have come up from Altrincham through Macclesfield, and have got that sort of raw kind of directness about them. And that's for me, that's what really excites me about James Berry.
Oh, he's absolutely electric on his day. Yeah, obviously we bought him from quite a low division. We weren't really sure what to expect when he first came into the team. But like, I think you mentioned earlier that off the bench he's had a real impact, and yeah, I would fully agree with that. I think there was a period in the middle of the season where he was our game changer. You'd bring him off the bench and he'd take 4 or 5 players on a solo run and come out with a bit of magic and get a goal for you in those really important moments. So yeah, if you had to describe him, he's absolutely rapid. He's a really direct player who loves to take defenders on, and he's starting to get that end product into his game as well, from a finishing point of view, and also bagged a couple of assists last year. So he's fantastic. And in terms of Paul Cook's overall MO, you've mentioned the sort of mixture of experience and youth. He's always done that. He's always brought in experienced heads to be those real leaders in the dressing room, and then interspersed that with young, hungry players. So you look at the kind of signings we've been making this summer. You bring in Chey Dunkley and Paddy Madden, two experienced EFL heads, and you intersperse that with Kane Drummond, again from Macclesfield, and Lewis Gordon, two youngish players who are looking to really learn off the experience that we've got and then kick on in their careers.
Yeah, well, I think that bodes really well. Tom, what do you think is going to be the best sort of equilibrium for that 3 behind the main striker, presuming that Will Grigg is going to be the most regular starter up top rather than Paddy Madden? Because I mean, I'm thinking, do you start Paddy Madden in the number 10 role, but then is Armando Dobra the best option in the 10 role after the season that he's had? That's going to be an interesting dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you just possibly asked me the hardest question you could have asked me.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think, to be honest with you, we rotated the squad quite a lot last season, and I think we'll see the same again. So what might be the start 11 one week won't necessarily be the starting 11 the next week. But for me, in terms of an equilibrium, I think you have either Paddy Madden or Ollie Banks probably in the number 10. I would say Dobra or Berry on one wing and Liam Mandeville on the other wing would be sort of the most balanced attacking midfield for me. Because then you've got one direct runner in Dobra or Berry. You've got someone who can pick out a pass. Because I mean, Paddy Madden, I've seen some clips of his sort of passing ability, and for a striker by trade, he really can drop into that 10 and just ping
definitely
balls, can't he? So him or Banks in the number 10 picking out those passes, and then Liam Mandeville is an absolute workhorse, and he barely wastes the ball on that right hand side. So you've sort of got 3 different approaches, if you know what I mean.
That's weird, actually, because Liam Mandeville, when he was at Doncaster, and this is probably going back 8 years ago now, he was actually seen as a bit more languid, a bit more, you don't quite know what you're going to get from him. Whereas now, from what you've described, coming to you on this, Matt, he's actually become someone who's very reliable and a workhorse and can look after the ball, and maybe not what we'd have associated with Liam Mandeville when he was at Doncaster. So that's really interesting how he's evolved with Chesterfield.
It's been great to watch him develop over the last few years. I mean, when we first got him, we were in a really bad place. We've already mentioned we were getting battered week in, week out. Relegation battles, it really wasn't nice. With Mandeville, we always found it very frustrating at first, because you could see the ability there and the fact that you knew that he could come out with something great and win you a game, but he never quite seemed to come up with the goods in the first season, probably. But he's just got better year after year since then, and now he's the most reliable player in the team in terms of his work rate. We're closing down. He's second to none. And he chips in with the goals and the assists as well, which is fantastic. So yeah, he is probably that player who gives you 7 out of 10 every week that every successful team needs.
So would you then not consider it a given then that Armando Dobra gets into the team, or would you have him as first choice on the left ahead of maybe James Berry, Matt?
I'd say Dobra out on the left. Yeah,
Okay.
he's played there to great success a lot of last season. So both him on the left and Mandeville on the right, and then like Tom said, either Paddy Madden or Banks sitting in the hole.
Yeah, well, that'll be really interesting to see how that all comes together. Another interesting question is whether Madden sometimes becomes number 10 / cover for Will Grigg up top, or whether you bring in another centre forward. There's been links, Tom, with Charlie Wyke from Wigan. Do you think that the club will invest in another out-and-out centre forward?
I think it depends for me, because obviously we do have sort of a different option already in Joe Quigley, who's a bit more of a hold-up target man kind of player. But I mean, I like Quigley. He did used to get quite a lot of flack at the club going back a year or two, because you didn't think he was going to score a goal every time he had a shot. It went into Rose Head or went out for throw-in or whatever. But I think he's really come on in the last year or so. I would say that's partially down to the coaching of Paul Cook. He's probably also learned a bit or two off of Will Grigg, I imagine. So obviously we've got different options. Sorry, my cat's attacking my laptop. We've got obviously Will Grigg, your out and out fox in the box. Paddy Madden, I wouldn't call him an out and out fox in the box. He's sort of a bit more dynamic as a striker. Then obviously you've got you've got Joe Quigley for your target man. So I'd be surprised personally. Obviously Charlie Wyke, very experienced striker, been around the EFL for a good few years, hasn't he? But yeah, I think someone would have to move on first, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Gabriel, just to jump in.
Yeah, go for it.
If we were going to sign another striker, I don't think it would be someone of the profile of Wyke, unless we were to move Quigley out, because he kind of is that physical presence up top. Really, we'd be looking for probably a pacey striker who could run in behind, because out of all the options we've got up front, that's probably what we're lacking the most. Tom's cat's making an appearance down there. Yeah, we're just missing that electric pace in the striker position to get in behind. Say, bring someone on for the last 10 minutes against tired legs and have an impact that way. So I would imagine we'll be looking at that kind of striker. Someone like an Andy Dallas type profile, or Dejon Brown, who did a great job at Gateshead last season on loan from Derby County.
Yeah, that would be a very exciting acquisition, wouldn't it? I look forward to hearing what Tom's cat has to say. So I wanted to talk to you about the centre half position, and actually I might as well come on to the signing of Chey Dunkley, because I asked ahead of this podcast for a view from a Shrewsbury fan, Jack from Shrews Analysis. So he's got a minute and a half to talk about. We've spoken about Chey Dunkley. Here's what he had to say.
Hi everyone, Jack from Shrews Analysis here. Obviously Chey Dunkley's gone. Now he's left, he's gone to join Chesterfield, and I've got no doubt he'll have a really good season with the SpireitesWrite next year. I think physically he's one of the best defenders in League One, let alone League Two, so I'm sure he'll dominate that division from that aspect, and his leadership qualities will shine through in a team which I think people will expect to be challenging up at the right end of the division. He was a bit of a man mountain for us, in fairness, over his 2 seasons. Very, very good. Physically, I think probably the best defender I've seen at the club during my time supporting the town. So again, I've no doubt he'll shine in that regard from there. Aerially, there's not many better than him, if any, to be honest. And I think he's also a bit better on the ball than some people give him credit for as well. Probably at his best in the middle of a 3-5-2, was where he really shone under Steve Cottrell last season, or the 2022-23 season, should I say. Probably fair to say he enjoyed a bit of a tougher season last year, but in fairness, the whole team, the whole club did in that regard. And there were times playing in the back four that he was a little bit isolated. He's not the most mobile defender in the world, so that may be something or somewhere that teams could potentially exploit him. I think being offered a 3-year deal by Chesterfield is a no-brainer for him to go and accept that offer from there, particularly given the financial status that we're in at the moment. But I'm sure on the whole he'll be a player that the SpireitesWrite fans will come to love, and that he'll really enjoy his time over in Derbyshire and be a successful signing for a manager that he knows well in Paul Cook. Cheers.
Well, there you go then. Thanks to Jack from Shrews Analysis for his insight on Chey Dunkley. Matt, what do you think of that? That sounded pretty encouraging, and he's obviously a defender with plenty of high league pedigree as well.
Yeah, he's a player who's got a great CV in terms of the clubs that he's been at, the amount of appearances he's made at higher levels than League Two as well. Really experienced man. And it sounds like he was very highly rated at Shrewsbury. So I think we've got a very good signing on our hands in Chey Dunkley. And again, a player that Paul Cook's worked with in the past and he trusts to do the job for him as well, which is always great.
Certainly is. Tom, the one thing that Jack did mention as a potential downside to Chey Dunkley, and I'm not, every defender is always going to have certain limitations, especially at this level, so that's not a slight on him, but I'm just wondering, he's not the quickest and could be vulnerable in those sort of in more sort of exposed situations. So I'm just wondering, is it going to be important to pair Chey Dunkley with ideally a really quick left-footed centre half?
It's an interesting one, actually, because it's been a debate for a while in sort of the Chesterfield fan base about whether or not we need more pace at centre half. Last season, at times, we were quite gung-ho in terms of we'd push our fullbacks out of the pitch. And at times, it did leave the centre halves a little bit exposed on the break, because obviously Jamie Grimes and Ash Palmer aren't the quickest in the world. They're good 1v1 defenders. They win the headers, they win tackles, but they aren't necessarily the quickest in the world. So I think a lot of our fans are expecting us to go out and sign a quick centre half kind of thing to complement Grimes. Mm-hmm. So in terms of Dunkley coming into the club, I'm not worried about that, because for a start, we've signed Lewis Gordon, who is meant to be slightly more defensive as a left back. So I think that'll sort of solve that problem a little bit. He might sit in a bit more. And I also think Dunkley, just with the experience that he's got, again, it's one of them. He might not be the quickest, but he's going to have that sort of experience and nous to know exactly where to be on the pitch. So I don't know. It's another one of them for me where he's got the higher league experience. I'm not worried about how he's going to do in League Two. I think he'll be a good player for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly see that. Matt, I want to, I suppose Tom mentioned Jamie Grimes there, and I'm quite curious about Jamie Grimes and the step up to League Two, because I'm speaking from someone who last time I saw him in League Two, it was with Cheltenham Town, and it did feel a little bit like in that 17-18 season for the Robins, he was making a mistake every other week that was giving away a goal, and that could be quite costly in League Two, but also I'm kind of conscious as well that was 6 years ago, and he might be a completely different defender, and he was obviously a regular part of a Chesterfield side that won the National League title last season.
Yeah, I think he played every single game apart from one last year, and that was because he was suspended. So he really was Mr. Reliable for the SpireitesWrite last year. And what I would say is, out of all of our back line, he is the centre half who made the least mistakes that led to goals. As Tom's already mentioned, the back line was under a lot of pressure last year with how attacking we were as a side. That's evident in the amount of goals that we conceded, predominantly on the counter-attack. But yeah, I would say that he, out of all of the centre halves, he is the one who dealt with that pressure the best and made the least mistakes. So I don't think he'll have any problems making the step up to League Two at all.
Do you agree with that, Tom?
Yeah, I think so. And our coaches have already gone on record to say that we're not going to quite be as gung-ho as we were last year as well, and that we sort of took liberties of knowing that we had a fantastic attack and could score over 100 goals. Obviously, next season, I still think we've got a fantastic attack for League Two, but I think also we might be tweaking things tactically a little bit. Like I say, I think Lewis Gordon's sort of an example of that. So, yeah, I'm not worried about him stepping up either. I think as a 1v1 defender, he's class.
Well, I suppose even if we take the view that Jamie Grimes is going to be first choice again this season, like he has been last year, starting 45 league games, and clearly he's got to have been doing something right to start 45 games in a title winning side, so all credit to him for that, I must make that clear. But even if we sort of take that stance, it does leave Chesterfield with 4 centre halves, of which only one is left-footed, and Paul Cook does seem to like a right footer, left footer sort of balance, Matt. So do you think there is going to be room for one more centre half to come in?
It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I think if there's a very good option out there for, I think you said earlier, a pacey left footed centre half, Cook will definitely be in the market for that kind of player. If there's one who is capable of playing at League Two level comfortably, then 100% we'd go in for a player of that calibre. Whether there is someone out there, I really don't know. But yeah, it's probably an area where if there is an option to improve, we will look to make some signings for sure.
Well, let's hope you can do that. I guess the main areas to strengthen, to my eyes at the moment, are goalkeeper, right back, and possibly another left-footed centre half. Is that something you would agree with, Tom? And also, if you get the right additions in those areas, would you consider it to have been a successful transfer window?
To be honest with you, I think it's already been a successful transfer window. I mean, in terms of positions you've mentioned, goalkeeper, I'm not worried about Ryan Boot. If he ends up being our first choice goalkeeper next season, I think he's more than capable of making that step up. He was probably one of the best goalkeepers in the National League for a good few years. Obviously, you can't just have one goalie though, so we do need another option. Whether we bring in somebody a bit younger, you know, someone to develop over a few years, or if we do go in for someone else with some experience, I don't know. But yeah,
any chance of getting Harry Tyra back?
It'd be nice. It'd be nice. I mean, he had a great season for us last year. He's exactly the kind of goalkeeper that Paul Cook would want, if you know what I mean. He's good at commanding his area. He's aggressive as well. And I think when you commit your defensive line forward, you want sort of that sweeper keeper in behind, don't you? So yeah, he was perfect for us. I think Ryan Duke could do that job as well, though. So, but yeah, if we could get Tyra back, great. It just depends whether or not Everton want to send him out to the higher league, like a League One club or something. I think right back's an interesting one, because obviously we only really have Ryan Shackelford currently who can play that role, but that's just on the face of it, because a few times last season Liam Mandeville filled in at right back. Once again, Mr. Reliable, who can play anywhere basically. But and he looked good, to be fair. He was actually better at defending than Jeff King, who was our second choice right back last year. So I think I think that is potentially what you might see. You might see Shackelford as first choice, and then obviously we've got so many attacking midfielders that you can afford to occasionally drop Mandy a bit deeper. And the other one was centre half, wasn't it? Like Matt said, if we can get somebody in, like you say, with that profile of pace, yeah, it'd be nice. I don't know who's out there, so I can't really comment beyond that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, Matt? Because I suppose that the conversations around each of these three positions kind of reveal what the ambitions are. Because I would say if Chesterfield really want to make a fist of this and get a top three finish, which some of the signings suggest that that's the case, then I would suggest that I'm not going to be as confident, maybe from an outside perspective. Maybe different if you watch some of these players week in, week out. I'm not sure I'd be as confident in Ryan Boot, in Shackelford, in Jamie Grimes as your first choice options, if that's what the aspiration is. But then the aspiration might be to get into the playoffs, in which case you might be able to do that with those players.
Absolutely. I think there is definitely the ambition from within the club that we want to get back into League One as soon as possible. I mean, Paul Cook's mentioned that he feels that's where we deserve to sit as a club, from like a club size point of view and that kind of thing. But I don't think there's any real expectation from the supporters that we do finish top three next season. It's more just we're happy we're back in the league. Let's see how high up the table we can finish. If we can finish in the top seven, that would be a fantastic first season back in the Football League. After, let's face it, we've been away for a long time. So there's going to be that period of adaptation of being back in the league. And yeah, if we can finish top seven, that'd be great. I don't think top three we'll be aiming for, really, to be honest. Okay. I could be wrong. But yeah, I think top seven will be a realistic aim for next season for sure.
What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, obviously, to get promoted from any division, you have to be a great side. I think we're a good side. Whether or not we're a great side compared to some of the teams in League Two, I don't know yet. I think it's definitely our ambition to get promoted in the next couple of years, I would say, from this league. And I think, to be honest with you, I could see it happening. But I think next season, I think there's a few question marks, like you said, about some players. Will they make a step up? Won't they? And that kind of thing. So it's just how they pan out. You never know. They could turn out to be top players for the level, and then we're happy days. But you just don't know, do you?
Yeah. Well, I think you've certainly got a core of players that have got sort of League One pedigree. When you talk about Will Grigg, when you talk about Chey Dunkley, we've mentioned. And then I want to come on to Tom Naylor, Matt, because he's such a tenacious ball winner, isn't he? And he seems to have been incredibly important to your title winning season and many people's Player of the Year.
it was clear from the minute he first stepped out on the pitch for us that he was leagues ahead of the National League, to be honest with you. Obviously, we signed him after he'd just spent a season in the Championship. He was just a class above. He was the complete midfielder in the National League. The way that he dictated play, won the ball back, played amazing passes across the pitch, and even chipped in with a load of goals for us. I mean, you don't really expect a defensive midfielder to get close to double figures in terms of goals scored, but that's what he managed to achieve for us. And I think that just shows just how outclassed he was, how outclassed he managed to make other midfielders in the National League, really, week in, week out. So what a fantastic player he is. He can certainly still do the job in League Two. I would argue he's still a League One quality central midfielder.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Spire Spats. I hope he doesn't get into many spats. Spire Stats is a very big advocate of Akinola. So, Tom, do you share his delight in getting him back after his contributions last season?
Yeah, I think I do. To be fair, I mean, he's 23 years old. He's a young lad. Obviously, he was highly rated by Arsenal to have been in their sort of youth setup. That will bode him well as well. And I think the last time he was here, you could sort of see there was a player in there. Obviously, he is young and he's relatively inexperienced, but Paul Cook likes those kinds of players that are sort of up and coming. And I think Akinola's got the raw ability that if he is surrounded by players like Mike Jones, Tom Naylor, and he learns off them, he could turn out to be a top class centre midfielder. To be honest, and I think he'll play like a decent part next season as well, because obviously in that sort of holding midfield role, Naylor starts every week. There's no question about that. Then it's the second player alongside him, and obviously Mike Jones. If Mike Jones was 5 years younger, I'd say there would be no question about him starting every game as well. But with him being 36, I want to say now, he's not going to start every game. So I reckon that second holding mid role will be sort of shared out between Akinola and Jones. So if he learns on the job, we've got one hell of a player on our hands.
Do you feel like Tom Akinola has the discipline to sit back when Tom Naylor goes for those attacking runs and tries to get into goal-scoring areas? Do they sort of have a good relationship with one another, do you feel?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I mean, obviously, we've never seen them play together, so it remains to be seen sort of how that develops. But what I do know is that they will be coached sort of suitably for that. I'm sure one of them will sit back while the other goes forwards. Akinola's known for sort of making those bursting runs forward with the ball. But to be fair, we had a player last season in Darren Oldacre who's kind of similar. He likes to get the ball from deep and then run forwards with it. So it's always a good thing to have up your locker. I just think that obviously we probably need to be a bit cautious in terms of not committing too many players forwards. I think having a sort of more defensive left back, I know I keep coming back to this, with Lewis Gordon, that changes things a bit for us because it sort of frees up maybe one more player to run forwards. So I personally don't see it being a massive issue either way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Matt, I mean, do you see it being a case of Naylor starting regularly and Akinola rotating with Mike Jones in terms of that midfield spot? Because you've also got, by the way, Darren Oldacre in the mix, and you've got Bailey Hobson there as well.
Yeah, I think I'd echo what Tom said in terms of it'll be Naylor and then between Jones and Akinola. If Jones is fit to play, he will start because the sort of experience he has, and he's able to sit in front of the back line and allow Naylor to go slightly further forward and do what he does best in the attacking half of the pitch. I think conversely, if Jones can't play, we might tell Naylor to drop back slightly deeper and maybe not go forward as much. In order to cover for Akinola, who generally is more of an attacking player who likes to get the ball down and burst into the opponent's half with it. So you might see that we get less goals from Naylor next season just because he might have to adapt and play a slightly more defensive role to cover the back line a little bit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Tom, talk to me about the Shackelford and how important you think he's going to be and whether you think he can be number one next season.
I really like Shackelford, to be honest. He's that kind of player who he's very good at making those sort of runs forwards with the ball as a fullback. He's a good attacking fullback, but I do find that he is sort of more reliable than your average attacking fullback, and he doesn't sort of compromise the 1v1 defensive side either. So I think he can do both, to be honest. And he's quite a balanced player. Sorry, I think we just lost you there for a second, didn't we?
No, I had to answer the door.
Oh, no worries, that's fine. Yeah, no, I think he's good at both. He's good at in 1v1 situations defensively. He's decent at going forwards. He's got a good cross on him. I think he's just quite a well-rounded right back, and I like that. I don't like players to be sort of, especially in that position, to sort of be too stacked one way or the other. You sort of want that balance where they can go forwards when needed. They can also cover their defensive responsibilities as well. So no, I think he'll make the step up, if I'm honest.
Well, let's hope that's the case. How are you feeling, Matt, about Ash Palmer and Tyrone Williams, and whether they can make the step up to League Two level at centre back?
Good question. I think Ash Palmer, I'm not so sure about, to be honest. Obviously, Stockport had him when they got promoted out of the National League, and then they sold him not long after that. And from what we heard from a lot of Stockport fans when he joined us from them, he's a class defender in the National League, but struggles to make the step up. So if that's still the case, then obviously he might struggle. Tyrone Williams, I think, has the privilege of being slightly younger, and it's possible that he's got a bit more time to learn his trade in League Two and adapt to the level slightly more. So out of the two, he's probably more likely to feature, I would say. But I mean, they're both obviously good options to have. Ash Palmer has a lot of experience as sort of a 30-odd-year-old centre half, and he'll be a capable deputy for the likes of Jamie Grimes if they get injured and we need someone to step in and fill a role.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. Tom, how do you feel the club is developing on in terms of infrastructure and the ownership of the community trust? Because it must be quite a refreshing thing to be owned by people who inherently care about the football club and have its best interests at heart. Because not many football fans of professional clubs can really say that.
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because we were actually recently taken over by two Chesterfield fans, the Kirk brothers.
Right.
So they've sort of taken a controlling interest in the club from the trust. The trust is still heavily involved, but the Kirks have come in, and to be fair on them, they just get it. I mean, they're Chesterfield fans first and foremost, who are also rich, so they want to see the club progress on and off the pitch. I think you've seen that. Paul Cook's been heavily back to the transfer window, both last season and this summer as well, to be fair. And in terms of the off-pitch infrastructure, they are starting to get around to that. I think they're currently redoing the floodlights have just been done, and they're redoing the sort of technical area, putting in some like racing seats instead of just like plastic ones in the dugouts. And I believe they're sort of making the stadium look a bit nicer as well, making the edge of the pitch blue and putting a Chesterfield badge and that kind of thing. So they sort of care about the little details, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they've said as well they want to sort of improve the food offering at the club, and we're also on about opening a fan zone, sort of like little supporters bar kind of thing outside the stadium at some point. So I mean, from that point of view, and I mean the big one as well. They've just redeveloped the training pitch last season, and that contributed massively. It has to be said to sort of our success, I think, because obviously you've got great coaches, but if you sort of disrupt them in terms of where you're training and what resources you've got available to you, that's going to disrupt things a bit. But now we've got our own sort of training facilities that, by all accounts, sort of League One Championship standard. So that's fantastic as well. So yeah, like I say, they just get it, and over time they're improving every aspect of the club, and that's all we can ask for, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matt, what does the balance look like for Chesterfield between sort of making some of these really high-profile signings and trying to give yourselves the best chance of short-term success, but also, I guess, looking at the bigger picture and going for sustainable growth? Because from an outside perspective, that's the thing that I really want to see from Chesterfield, be able to develop players and progress in a steady and sustainable way. I guess that's what you'd like to see as well.
Absolutely, that perfectly echoes what I think the majority of the fan base want. It's that stability. We don't want to end up in the situation we were in 6-7 years ago ever again. But I think we've got that now with the Kerr brothers coming in, that they understand that to build for the long term, all these steps need to be taken. And I honestly think the club is now in the best situation that it's ever been in its history. Obviously, with the new stadium, we've got the ownership problems out of the way now. crowds are growing year over year, sort of 7,000-8,000 crowds, which is fantastic at National League level. It's still good at League Two level. And yeah, I think the only way's up now for this club for the next 10 years at least.
Well, that sounds really exciting. So, yeah, well done to the Kirk brothers for what they've done. I guess, Tom, I'm sure we've answered a few of these, a few of what I'm about to ask you, but I just wanted to sort of get a summary answer from you. What would be the reason to believe that Chesterfield will achieve your aspirations in 24-25 and maybe achieve that top 7 finish that we've talked about?
2 words for me: Paul Cook. Yeah, I mean, every Chesterfield fan rates him incredibly highly. I think everybody knows how good a manager he is at this level of football. Last time we had him in League Two, we won the division. So he's been around the blocks in this league. He's been around the blocks in the league above, and now he's got things the way he wants it in terms of the squad. And now he's been backed. I always say, if you back Paul Cook, good things are going to happen. So for me, if we do get top 7 next year, it'll be because Paul Cook's pulled off another blinder.
And then coming to you on this, Matt, what do you think would be the reason to maybe question whether you'll achieve that top 7 spot, and what would be the reason to think you might just fall short?
Probably the goals against column last season. Obviously, 65 goals is a lot of goals for a league-winning side to concede. So that's probably the one question mark. What you would say is we've made steps to address that. We've signed 2 defenders during the summer. So I suppose whether that bears fruit over the course of the next season remains to be seen. But yeah, that'll be the big question mark that presumably most people would come at us with when it comes to our sort of playoff credentials next season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Notts County have showed that you've got to have the defensive basics right. But I do think that Paul Cook is a little bit. Excuse me. Got hiccups there. Paul Cook is a bit more of a pragmatist than maybe Notts County have got, so I think he will make steps, like I think you've both referred to, that to sort of solidify. And then I guess my final question to both of you, starting with you, Tom. Too early for a prediction, obviously, but give me a number between 1 and 10 to denote your level of optimism, and I imagine it'll be on the high side for you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like Matt's already said, we're sort of riding the crest of a wave as a club at the minute. And you've seen teams before come out of the National League and then go straight up again. So it's not unprecedented. I'm feeling very optimistic. I think the recruitment we've made has been spot on. And the sky's the limit with this team and this manager. So yeah, I'm going to go probably a solid 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10, there you go. What about you, Matt? Sorry, you're on mute, mate.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'd echo everything that Tom's just said. Really optimistic times at the club. And yeah, I see no reason why not to give a 10 out of 10 for optimism.
There you go. Brilliant. 9 out of 10 and a 10 out of 10. That's very bullish. So, yeah, well, listen, thank you so much to SpireitesWrite for joining me, Tom and Matt. Really appreciate your insight, of course. Thanks to everyone for watching at home. This has been the EFL Debate Summer Deep Dive on Chesterfield. We've got plenty more Summer Deep Dives coming up over the course of the summer, so keep your eyes peeled, and we'll see you again next time.